how do you work with your clients to be able to parse out what feelings are super valuable that should be listened to? That would, you always hear these ideas of someone has a feeling that they shouldn't go inside that building that day for no reason, and they don't go, and then there happens to be a something in there that they couldn't have never have known, or like these little intuition stories we hear all the time that, who knows what sort of things we're ignoring in our senses and our feelings that we're not aware of, yet in 2025. So yeah, how do you help people, men specifically, uh, parse the relevant feelings from the not irrelevant but unhelpful feelings?
Well, that's where self awareness and insight are so important because every single example that you gave, there's meaning behind these feelings. So if you come back to the public speaking, it could be it's like you are scared because this is your first time. And I've experienced this. I remember my very first professional public speaking event, and all the people that I was reading their work for my research, they're all in the audience. They all know more than me. And if I go up there, they're going to see all the gaps in my knowledge and start poking their finger in them, in these gaps, and I'll feel like an idiot.
Right.
Well, that's not true. Everyone's actually really nice. And the work that I'm doing, that's my research. Yeah, the work that they're doing is relevant, but no one's doing this. And so I'm actually teaching them. And yeah, they're going to have some challenging questions, but it's really important in those moments to say, "Oh, I didn't think of that. I don't know. Good point." That doesn't show that I'm dumb or stupid. It's a good point, and I just learned something from you.
Yeah.
So, I just use that as an anecdote to think about what those feelings about being scared or even petrified to give a presentation are. We can learn something about ourselves. You're talking about an example of the date, and it's like, this just doesn't feel right. What's that off feeling? I don't know if I can point to a specific feeling that you're talking about or I'm talking about. It's that maybe it's that intuition, or maybe it's just like, this person is just, they won't stop talking about themselves.
Right.
And that happens a lot. And it's like, well, that's not what a good relationship is based on. So if that's what a first date is like, that kind of gives me some insight about what a relationship would be like. And I don't want to be in a relationship like that. So
Right.
we'll politely end the dates, and there's not going to be a callback. So being able to think through what those feelings are signaling to us so that we can make good decisions for ourselves. And sometimes it's about acting on that feeling, and sometimes it's just understanding that feeling, like fear before a presentation. It's like, okay, I know what that's about, but I can't act on that. Acting on it would be, well, I'm not going to give that presentation. But
Right.
if I understand what it is, it's like, okay, I've got this. I'm going to be okay. You can get
Right.
through.
Yeah, I think that's why I think it's so important that, men have safe people and places in their life to express themselves emotionally.
Oh
Because I
yeah.
think if we continue to disconnect ourselves or disconnect our friends from their own emotions, telling them that what they feel isn't valid, then I think it becomes much more difficult to navigate the world when you don't know when something doesn't feel right, when something does feel good, like, because then you're just kind of strolling around without your ability to parse reality for what's good and what's bad for you. And I think if you get to that point where you're out to sea, and I think emotions are kind of your oars to help you steer in a lot of respects, then I think it's easier to be manipulated either through people who want to, hijack male confusion or male rage for their own whims, or either selling a course to help them to be more like a man, blah blah, or to tell them that the only way to be a man is to have X amount of dollars, so you should take my course and I'll teach you how to be rich. Instead of saying, like, you can just feel what you feel, and that's okay. And if you don't want to be a stockbroker, then you can be a nurse, or you can be a teacher, or you can be a welder, or you can be a carpenter. Like all of these things, um, I think become really difficult to navigate if you're continually told by society and unfortunately the people around you that men aren't allowed to feel bad about things. That you should don't complain, don't be such a pussy. Why are you complaining for? Like you just suck it up and do like all of these things. Like I think us as men, I can include myself in this, like less so now than when I was younger, but if you have that feeling of disconnection and rage, like it ends up going somewhere.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
I remember even like when I would greet good friends of mine in my 20s, they would start with an insult. It'd be like "fuck you" or "hey jerk off" or like it would. I remember I can when I assume the character trait of myself in those moments in my 20s, like I can feel the tension of emotion. Like I can feel like I'm just performing this personality that I think is what it feels like to be a boy, to be a man in those environments. And it took me a long time to realize, like, I don't like that feeling. That's not really who I am. Like when I see my friends, I'm happy to see them. I want to know how they are. I want to give them a hug. I want to have a laugh. And so like to start in these performance masculinity that I think a lot of boys and men, men into their 70s, end up doing. Again, I think it's super sad. I think it's a whole group of people, like we talked about before, that are have these deep emotional reservoirs of love and caring, and it's something they're just cutting themselves off from. I think that's the saddest part about all of this.